as you call me, deeper still as you call me, deeper still as you call me, deeper still into love, love, love. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are, it's who you are, it's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am, it's who I am, it's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are, it's who you are, it's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am, it's who I am, it's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are, it's who you are, it's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am, it's who I am, it's who I am. You're good. You are perfect in all of your ways. It's who you are, it's who you are, and I'm loved. You are perfect in all of your ways. It's who I am, it's who I am.
You were the Word at the beginning, one with God the Lord Most High. Your hidden glory in creation, now revealed in you are Christ. What a beautiful name it is. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a beautiful name it is. Nothing compares
Mommy needs a quarantine.
And our moms may be spending a lot of time with their kids right now. A lot. Like, so much time. And even though they love their kids to the moon and back,
Mommy, where are you going?
sometimes moms need a little alone time.
Mommy!
You know, to recharge.
Go talk to Daddy. Mommy! Where are you? Are you in there? Mommy! We can see you. Up and up!
I just wanna lie in the sun. Whoa, lie in the sun.
But no matter what's happening in the world, their favorite way to spend time is with their family.
But now my only word is now, and my only word is when I'm by your side.
In good times, in hard times,
Mom! You're breaking everything!
in uncertain times. Thank you, Mom, for making time for us every single day.
Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for today. I ask that you would watch over us as we go to bed and rest, that you would speak to us in Bible stories and speak to us in our...
Mom, if you're watching, I love you so much. Thank you for everything you've done for me and raising me up to go to church. And again, I just think of the value of having somebody like that, of a good mom. You know, I know that if Evelyn just had me, who knows how she would be. I'm so glad Rachel's here and she's able to direct her when I'm not directing her well. Evelyn well, that is. So I think we don't have audio. Ricky, do we have audio? Okay. But all right. So if you guys can hear, let's stand in this worship this morning. Let's start with "Come Thou Fount."
Songs of loudest praise.
say that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside. I give you my life. 'Cause I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. 'Cause I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. When peace like a river attended my way, when sorrow like sea billows roll, whatever my Lord thou hast taught me to say, it is well, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. With my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. My sin, it is well with my soul. With my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. And Lord, haste the day when the faith shall be sight, the clouds be rolled back as the scroll. The trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend. And so it is well with my soul.
And when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. You're my one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
Good, guys. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Mother's Day, ladies out there. What a great gift that God has given us for the mothers that we have. God is good, isn't he? Today we're going to come and pray before Pastor Jay gives the message. We have quite a few prayer requests out there. Becca White is recovering from appendix surgery right now, and Savannah Jones is grieving her loss of her grandmother. Renee Robinson's son-in-law's uncle had a heart attack. Shirley and Stan Gillespie's brother-in-law, Bob Crosby, is at Grant, and he's having seizures. Christine and Jay's father, Fred, he just got out from having hernia surgery. And Jenny Ramsey's dad, Dwight, smashed his finger, and he's at Grant. And of course, you know, I'm stepping in for Mike this morning. He's at home. He has a little bit of AFib going and some other things that they're looking at, and he needs to make some major decisions in his life. And I put a post on Facebook yesterday, and I got such results from it. It's from John Riddell, and it's a little me, God thing. And it goes like this. It says, I said, "Hey, God." And God says, "Hello." I said, "I'm falling apart. Can you put me back together?" God says, "I would rather not." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you aren't a puzzle. What about all the pieces in my life that are falling down into the ground?" God says, "Let them stay there for a while. They fell off for a reason. Take some time and decide if you need any of those pieces back." "Well, you don't understand. See, I'm breaking down." God said, "No, you don't understand. You're breaking through. What you're feeling are just growing pains. You are shedding the things and the people in your life that are holding you back. You aren't falling apart. You're falling into place. So relax, take some deep breaths, and allow those things you don't need anymore to fall off of you. Quit holding on to the pieces that don't fit you anymore. Let them fall off and let them go." "Well, once I start doing that, what will be left of me?" God says, "Only the very best pieces of you." "Well, I'm scared of changing." And God says, "I keep telling you, you aren't changing. You are becoming." "Becoming who?" I said. God said, "Becoming who I created you to be, a person of light and love and charity and hope and courage and joy and mercy and grace and compassion. I made you for more than just the shallow pieces that you have decided to adorn yourself with, that you cling on to with such greed and fear. Let those things fall off of you. I love you. Don't change. Become who I made you." "Well, there goes another piece, God." "Yep, let it be." "I'm not broken then?" "Of course not. but you are breaking like the dawn. It's a new beginning, so become. And I thought that was so beautiful. So let's go to prayer. We've got so many things happening, and they're trying to get things back together, and I know a lot of people are struggling. I still do the Bible study on Sundays and Life Recovery Group on Wednesdays with the people. But I want to encourage somebody before I go into prayer. If you haven't talked to anybody, or you haven't been accountable, or you haven't, you just feel isolated and alone, that's not what God intended for this purpose that we're going through right now. He's intended it for us to reach out to each other and to help each other and to be accountable to each other. And so I would encourage, if you have not talked to anybody or prayed with anybody, I would encourage you to call a friend. It doesn't matter if they go to church with you or not, but to call a friend and pray with them and talk with them and encourage them that God has bigger plans than what we see. So let's go to prayer. Father God, we just come to you today, Lord, and first of all, I thank you, God, for the special gift of motherhood that you have given us, that you have created from the very beginning with Mary and Jesus. And Lord, it has carried on through the years, the love and compassion and grace that you have bestowed into mothers so that they can raise us, just like we saw in the video today. I know I drove my mom crazy, but through the grace and mercy that you had given her and the love, we made it through. And so, Father, I thank you for that special gift that you have given them. You know the many that are in the hospital and the many that are on the men's. And so, Father, we just thank you for your hand at work there and your healing grace. And we ask for that. Lord, we know that it is a time of struggle that we are in right now. And so, Father, we come to you for your hand, and your presence is so prominent right now in our lives that we need you more than we have ever needed you before. So we ask, Father, that as we come to you and as we call friends and start to pray with them, you said that when two or more gather in your name, that you will be in their midst. It doesn't matter if it's from here to Alaska. As long as we're talking together, that you're going to be in our midst. And what a widespread that would be, Father, across the country, your presence. And we know that you're there. So, Father, we just ask you to guide us and be with our president and our leaders and the ones that have to make all the decisions through these tough times that we're going through. I ask that you be with each couple and parents and the people out there that are struggling right now. Lord, they need your touch. May they open their hearts and their minds to you today. And Lord, I pray for Pastor Jay as he comes up and gives his message today. May the full anointing of you be upon him. And Lord, it's going to be just a glorious day when we can get back together and hold hands and hug and just praise the Lord together. And for that, we're just going to give you all the praise and all the glory in Jesus' mighty name. And the church said, amen.
I understand we were having trouble with the audio early on in the service. The picture that was up earlier of a young man, that's Gavin DeZoden. He's graduating from high school, and just wanted to give him a shout out. So remember him in prayers and in your thoughts. And before I preach this morning, we have a collage or a slideshow of our mothers. Many of our moms were pictures were presented or sent in for this slideshow, so take a look and enjoy. I said so, that's why. Mothers teach foresight. Make sure you wear clean underwear, you might be in an accident. Mothers teach irony. Keep laughing and I'll give you a reason to cry. Mothers teach about stamina. You'll sit there until the spinach is all gone. Mothers teach about the weather. It looks like a tornado hit this place. Mothers teach the circle of life. I brought you into the world, I can take you out. Mothers teach about behavior modification. Stop acting like your father. Mothers teach about envy. There are millions of less fortunate children in this world who don't have a wonderful mom like you do. A mother is a vital part of God's blueprint for building a good Christian home. I want to look at some images this morning that mothers provide in making the Christian home what it should be. First of all, a Christian home should be a filling station. We don't even know what filling stations are anymore other than gas stations where you just pull in and you pump it all yourself. Used to be, you pulled into the place there by the gas pump and an attendant came out and filled your car, washed off your windshield and checked the oil and did all those things. That was a filling station. What we need for our Christian homes is a place where we can get checked and refueled. And the fuel that keeps families going is love. Out of Scripture, Hannah was a good example of a godly mother who loved her child. She prayed for his son and dedicated him to serving the Lord even before he was born. In 1 Samuel chapter 1, we're going to read several verses. Verse 11 said, "Then she made a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your maidservant and remember me, and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a male child, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall come upon his head." Verse 20, "So it came to pass in the process of time that Hannah conceived and bore a son and called his name Samuel, saying, because I have asked for him from the Lord." Verse 22, "But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, not until the child is weaned, then I will take him, that he may appear before the Lord and remain there forever." Verse 24 and on, "And when she had weaned him, she took him up with her with 3 bowls, 1 ephah of flour and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord in Shiloh. And the child was young. Then they slaughtered a bull and brought the child to Eli. And she said, O my Lord, as your soul lives, my Lord, I am the woman who stood by you here, praying to the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me my petition, which I ask of him. Therefore I also have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he shall be lent to the Lord. So they worshiped the Lord there." How much greater love could a mother have than for her children than to give them to the service of the Lord? Isn't that the same that is expected today? Proverbs 22 verse 6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." We need to do everything we can to raise our children to be godly, Christ-like, and follow in his will. So first off, a Christian home should be a filling station. Second, a Christian home should be a storm shelter. A storm shelter because children are not only looking for love, but they're looking for a place of safety and security. Again, in Proverbs chapter 14:26, it says, "In the fear of the Lord there is strong confidence, and his children will have a place of refuge." Children want to know that there's a place that they can be safe and have peace from all the storms of life. I heard about this 4-year-old and 6-year-old, these siblings who just wanted to give their mother something for Mother's Day. They end up giving a houseplant to her. They had to use their own money to buy it, and she was thrilled with that. The older of them said with a sad face, "There was a bouquet at the flower shop that we wanted to give you. It was really pretty, but it was way too expensive. It had a ribbon on it, 'Rest in peace.' And we thought it would be just perfect since you are always asking for a little peace so you can have some rest." A Christian home needs to be a place that's a filling station and a shelter in the time of storm. Thirdly, a Christian home should be an emergency room, a trauma center for all the non-medical emergencies of life. And I will say there's a whole lot of medical emergencies that my mom handled in my grown-up years. A lot of cuts and bruises and breakages that she ended up helping with. Every child is going to be wounded sooner or later. Someone is going to break their heart, call them names. And where are they going to run to? They're going to turn toward home. They need a Christian home to turn to with sound, godly parents. Margaret Cobb tells the story of her 13-year-old daughter. She said, "My 13-year-old daughter is perhaps having more trouble than some teens discovering who she is because she is adopted from South Korea, and we have no idea who her birth mother might be. Recently, Amy, the 13-year-old, got braces on her teeth, and she was more and more uncomfortable as the day wore on. By bedtime, she was just absolutely miserable. I gave her some medication and invited her to snuggle up with me for a while. Soon she became comfortable and drowsy, and in a small voice that gradually was tapering off toward sleep, she said, 'Mom, I know who my real mom is. It's the one who takes the hurting away.'" A mother has her emergency room open 24/7. A Christian home should be a filling station, a storm shelter, an emergency room, and fourthly, a Christian home should be a schoolhouse. That idea has kind of been pressed upon us in these days, but it has always been so. Others normally teach our children math and typing or science or all those other classes to be taken at school, but at home where children should learn about life. The Bible says that moms and dads teach life to their kids. Proverbs 6, verses 20 through 23, "My son, keep your father's command and do not forsake the law of your mother. Bind them continually upon your heart. Tie them around your neck. When you roam, they will lead you. When you sleep, they will keep you. And when you awake, they will speak with you. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law a light. Reproofs of instruction are the way of life." Children need to be taught how to deal with life, and it needs to be taught at home. If we're only getting advice and direction from others outside the home, what kind of advice and direction are they getting? How to get along with people, how to be a good, decent, and honest person, about values, what's right and wrong, morality and its application versus immorality and its consequences. All these things need to be taught in the home. The things that are most important in life will be taught in the schoolhouse that mom and dad run. A teacher was giving a lesson on fractions. "Johnny, suppose there were 7 of you, 5 children and a mom and dad. Suppose there was a pie for dessert. What fraction of that pie would you get?" "Oh, that's easy," Johnny said. 1/6. "What? What do you mean? Don't you understand fractions?" Johnny said, yeah, I know about fractions, but I also know my mom. She'll say, oh, I don't want any. Moms, they're something special, aren't they? Lastly, number 5, a Christian home must be a worship center. A child shouldn't have to wait to get to church to worship God. Our homes ought to be holy ground where God is, where He is there. And children should know God is real because He's real to their parents. It's interesting, just a few weeks ago after all this virus stuff came out and the lockdown happened and we closed up services here and just went live stream only, Lori White sent me a cartoon. And there's Satan and God talking with each other. First, the devil says, I did it. I finally did it. I closed down the church. And God just kind of calmly responds, oh no, on the contrary, I opened one in every home. I think, yes sir, amen. That's exactly what happened. When we think about raising up children in a godly home, I think of Timothy. Timothy's mother was Eunice, and Paul commended Eunice in 2 Timothy 1, verse 5, when he says, when I call to remembrance the genuine faith that is in you, which dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and I am persuaded is also in you. Mothers pass on to their children a faith to live by. Eunice raised Timothy to have a great faith in God despite their home being religiously divided. You can see the importance of generations of the Christian faith. And you can see that Lois, Timothy's grandmother, played an important role in grounding Eunice and Timothy in a sincere faith in God. I feel that is so important. I've got 10 reasons to believe that. Hannah, Olivia, Isaiah, Selah, Laura Lynn, Simon, Emmett, Gwen, Bella, and Jaden. I got them all named. There they are. I have 10 amazing reasons to believe in this. The grandparents have a huge impact on their grandchildren. They should, and they must, as well as parents, investing in the lives of these little ones, that they too will follow in their parents' and grandparents' footsteps of the faith. John Wesley is huge in our religious, our denominational beliefs. We would call ourselves Wesleyan because of our following of his teachings on holiness and such. John Wesley had a mom. Her name was Susanna. Susanna Wesley taught her children, whatever weakens your reason, impairs the tenderness of your conscience, obscures the sense of God, or takes off the relish of spiritual things. In short, whatever increases the strength and authority of your body over your mind, that thing is sin to you, however innocent it may be in itself. Children need to be trained up in the way they should go. An example needs to be set at home on what they need to believe. Children should know that God is real, not only by the Bible stories they read, but because they are influenced by parents and can see faith lived out within their families. Because homes are a worship center where Christ is not merely spoken of, but lived out by pattern and example for all to see. Psalm 127 verse 1 says, "Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Unless the Lord guards the city, the watchman stays awake." in vain. We need Jesus in our homes. We need parents and grandparents that are influencing the children of today to have a right understanding of sin and of forgiveness. We need those who will make the footprints for the children to follow. A Christian home ought to be a filling station for all the tune-ups we need from time to time. A shelter, a storm shelter, a secure fortress, a refuge for children. An emergency room always open to take care of whatever emergency arises. Schoolhouses teaching about life and how to grow up with manners and morality. A worship center where spirituality is not only taught but seen in the lives of the parents. God is the priority. This whole message for today rings loud and clear from Joshua 24:15. And if it seems evil to you to serve the Lord, choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. Whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the river, or the gods of the Ammonites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. We're thankful today for mothers and for fathers who have decided to serve God, to serve Him in their homes, and to raise their children in such a way that those children will walk in that same way. God as priority of their lives, using His blueprint to build their home. As we close, Dalton's going to sing a song. It's called "The House of God Forever." That's what I want your homes to be. Amen. When I think of this, I think of my home that I grew up in. Mom and dad and 8 kids. Always a house full. But we always had that influence in our lives. A godly influence. Influence toward getting to church whenever the doors were open. And we brought it home. Remember the family altar that Dad set up in the corner of the living room. I remember the Bible stories he'd read at breakfast. I remember when I was a teenager going to church, and it seemed like our whole family was in the church choir. It was amazing to see my mom stand up in those services and testify about her belief in God and His influence in her life and how He has helped. My prayers for each family, each one who is hearing this broadcast today, that God's Holy Spirit would be in your home in a powerful way. He'd help you realize the tremendous influence of your lives. We must use that influence for God, for eternity. Dear Lord, I'm praying your encouragement upon every mom today. I know some have been, kind of stuck at home, a house full or a house absolutely empty. Lord, both are just pretty tough to deal with at times. But I pray for your peace in these homes, your encouragement in every life and heart. And today, Lord, I'm praying for our homes, that moms and dads both would realize the tremendous influence and opportunity that they have in these days to make a difference in eternity for their children and for their children's children and all the generations to follow. Lord, I'm praying that today you would just show up in every home. Let your presence be there in a powerful, amazing way, that all of our homes would be houses of God forever. I thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Be blessed. Have a wonderful Mother's Day. Amen.